So this is a review of Painter's Cherilata. It's April 18th right now, so this fruit was hanging for quite a bit of time. It dropped, so I'm not expecting much from a dropped fruit. I feel like sometimes with the cherimoyas and atamoyas, the flavor actually diminishes when it drops, but I am not too sure with this because it's a reticulata cross, so maybe the flavor will hold on to it, but we'll see. Here's the stem right here, and it has quite a huge stem core, so this fruit weighs about 2 pounds and 7 ounces. The feel is pretty heavy, and just for comparison right here, this is an AP2. This weighs about 2 pounds 5 ounces, so it looks a little bit bigger, but I'm not sure if that's just because of the shape. But that's just a comparison on the two, kind of just to kind of see that versus this. So I'm gonna put this aside, the AP2, and let's kind of look at just this Painter's Cherilata. From pictures I've seen, usually it's very red, but I don't know why it's not so red. The bottom here is really red, but everything else is kind of more like this brownish color. So I'm not sure why that is. My guess is maybe it's because it's in full sun, and that could be a thing, because I noticed with at least the Lisa Antamoya, it seems that the ones in the shade seems to develop more of a reddish versus the one that's in the sun seems to develop more of a greenish color with the Lisa. So I don't know if that's the case with this either. This is the first year I have fruit. This was on a graft that I made in 2000. Yeah, I grafted it in 2023. It fruited, it set flowers, and it pollinated, and I had two pretty large fruits. So this is the one I dropped. I have one that's still on there that hasn't dropped. I kind of intend to maybe pick that one before it drops, so I'm giving that maybe another week, and I'm going to pick it, just because, as I mentioned, I feel like sometimes with a dropped fruit, at least on the cherimoya and atamoyas, the flavor kind of diminish a bit along with the texture. So but this one's a cherimoya reticulata, so it might be different. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Now let's go ahead and cut this thing open. So the flesh is more pinkish than some of the more reddish ones I've seen. Again, it's a first year graft, so maybe that had an impact. I am not too sure. But yeah, here's the flesh color, a bit pinkish. The seeds all look fully developed. It has an interesting aroma, maybe a reticulata aroma, because I never had a reticulata before, so it kind of has that, where it's kind of this kind of milky kind of dairy smell, I guess. Not a bad dairy, but like kind of a milky smell. Okay, let's try this and see what I think. Again, I don't have much expectation for a fruit that has dropped. So we'll see. I'm gonna record this one, and I'm gonna record the one that I pick afterwards, and it's gonna be just kind of one video. very interesting. It's very custardy, very smooth, like put some grittiness in there. I don't taste any kind of chewiness that's along the line of the Anamoya. And this kind of reminds me more a bit of a Cherilata, like a very soft flesh Cherilata, not like a white or something like that, but something in the past, I think maybe like a honey heart, a very, very soft textured Cherilata, but not as juicy, I guess. Like the flesh is not like juicy, like in terms like how the Cherilata and Anamoya is. It's a bit more on the. It's not. I wouldn't say it's dry, but if you to compare it to a Cherilata, it's on the drier side, but it's not like a dry fruit. I like the flavor. The flavor is very good. The flavor is kind of reminds me of it's sweet, it's tart, and I could see how people says some of the Cherilata, the custard apples, has this kind of yogurty, cream cheesy kind of taste to it. It has sweetness and it has like a tartness to it, but like it's not a strong tartness, but it's like something you kind of like, I guess like hints of yogurt, maybe the best way I could describe it. Surprising thing is that it's not that juicy. That's it. That's the thing that kind of cut me off. Overall, I think this might be more on the flavor of a Cherilata than a Cherilata. So the paint is supposed to be a Spain Cherilata crossed with a I think it's called a Tico of a Cherilata. So I think I have a better idea of what this flavor reminds me of now. It reminds me of you take like fruits, like some berries and bananas, and then you turn it into like a yogurt. It's not intensely sweet like a Cherilata or anything like that, but the sweetness is there. You won't say, you can't say it's not sweet. So that's what it reminds me of, like a fruit yogurt, you know. And that fruit is like maybe, I don't know, maybe a mixture of berries and bananas. So we'll see. This is on a fruit that's dropped, very soft textured. There's no chewiness to it. The flesh is on the drier side compared to a Cherilata or a Anamoya. The flavors aren't what I would call intense. You know, like with a Cherilata and stuff, the flavor is pretty intense, like, you know, pretty high level of sweetness, and the tartness is there. It's sweet. Like, you're not gonna say it's not sweet, but it's not intensely sweet. So this one's a drop fruit. Next overall, I'm gonna try a fruit that did not drop and see if the texture is different. But my experience with a drop Cherilata and Anamoya, the intensity of the sweetness is usually dialed down, and the texture is usually very kind of soft and custardy like this. So inside it's a pretty fruit. Kind of reminds me of like a, you know, like a pink guava flesh, you know. Just kind of cut more of this, kind of let you guys see All right, I'll be finishing this on the side, but yeah, this is the first part of the review. Hopefully I'll have a second part of the review on it, on one that didn't drop. All right, this is my review of the Painter's Cherilata. This is my second review of Painter's Cherilata, and compared to the first one, this one is one that was picked before it dropped. And I'm gonna taste it and see if there was a difference between the drop fruit and the fruit that I picked. So it's the 29th right now. I picked this about 8 days ago. It started ripening about day 7, day 6, day 7. I think you could have probably cut it, but I wanted to wait and just make sure that everything is soft before I do cut it. Unfortunately, with the Painters, at least on my tree, I couldn't get it to really get that bright red color on it yet. So unfortunately, I did not get that. I got more like these specks, and similar to the last one, they had these specks on the bottom, specks of red, and then it dropped. So this one didn't drop. I cut it. You can see the stem right here. It has quite a large stem. This is like, you know, really huge kind of stem and core. Well, the last one I did enjoy. It was a drop, and usually if it was like with Cherimoya and Atamoys, I feel like the quality goes down with a drop. And especially like an Atamoya, I can't even eat an Atamoya that has dropped. The texture is kind of very soft and kind of like baby food like, and it's usually very kind of one-dimensionally sweet. With some Cherimoyas are a little bit better, even though they drop and they still taste pretty good. But lots of the Anamoyas and Cherimoyas, I think the flavor kind of goes down. So that's why I want to see how this does with a non-dropped. I did like the one that was dropped. For a drop fruit, it was really good. Like for example, the Anamoyas, I don't eat it. I just kind of throw it away. It's just not good. But I finished the last one. It was pretty addictive. I think the flavor kind of reminds me of yogurt in terms of like the sweetness level, and has some kind of qualities that kind of remind me a bit of dairy. I could definitely see how people kind of describe this as like, you know, I didn't get the funky cream cheese or anything like that, but I could see how people describe it as kind of like a yogurty, cream cheesy kind of flavor. I liked it. It was pretty addictive. I ate it and I finished the rest. Just as a caveat, my wife did not like it, so but she prefers the texture of Atamoya and not the texture of like a very soft Cherimoya. So that's why she did not like it. I'm gonna taste this and see if the texture is gonna be any different on this and the flavor. So let's see, how am I gonna handle this? Oh, this fruit, by the way, is a little bit bigger than the last one. So this one's actually 3 pounds 13.5 ounce. So it's almost a I'm sorry, not 3 pounds, 2 pounds and 13.5 ounce. So it's almost a 3-pound fruit, but a pretty heavy fruit. So let's see how am I gonna cut this one. I'm gonna go from here. Yeah, it's like this pink blush on the flesh. And the seeds, you know, I decided to pick this because the seeds, at least on the other one, was like fully developed, you know. So this one, I imagine that this was be fully developed seeds too. So that means it'll probably be ready to go. So that's why I picked it before it dropped or before any more signs of redness. Let's see. And the texture of the last one I would call it like more like a, it wasn't as juicy as like an Atamoya. You know, it's not dry, but it's not like juicy like an Atamoya. So we'll see how this one does. So definitely the texture is a little bit firmer, but it is nothing like a chewy Atamoya. Nothing like that at all. It's a firmer texture. Definitely if you like to get this a lot more softer, you probably leave this on for even a few more days. Firm but very kind of soft. So I would imagine this, like if I was to describe this to people, it kind of reminds me of a bit of the texture is a bit of like a soft guava, like the meat section of a soft guava. That's what it is. And if you let this ripen even more, I'm sure it will get a lot more softer. Probably reminds you a bit more like, you know, some of the cream cheese kind of texture or feel of it. You know, like my first one was very kind of like that kind of texture. It was very soft, kind of like baby food kind of softness to it, you know. This does have a bit more intense sweetness and acidity to it versus the drop fruit. I'm not tasting a lot of that kind of dairy component that I tasted with the drop fruit, and that could just be, you know, I could just kind of maybe let it ripen a lot more, a lot longer, and maybe that comes in, or maybe that's a part of a fruit that kind of drops. Because my understanding is, at least with the Cherilata, seems like, and you guys could correct me with this, because I never had it to with Cherilata, never grew with Cherilata. But the folks that do grow them, it seems like they let them get soft on the tree, or let them either drop before they kind of before they eat it. Yeah, especially right here near the skin, there's a little bit of grit, similar to a lot of the anonas, like that little grit between the skin. But on this one, it feels like a guava. You know, it just kind of tastes like that soft guava. You had like a ripe red guava or something like that. I mean, I like this. I like the flavor on this. It's very easy eating. You know, it's not that you don't get that sugar overload like a very intense anamoya or cherimoya. So you could definitely eat a lot more of it. It has like these kind of flavonoids to it that kind of reminds me of, you know, berries or a little bit of guava, but without the smell of a guava. The fruit does seem a little bit more juicy than a drop, but it's nothing like a nothing like a really juicy kind of anamoya or cherimoya. Yeah, once I get into like this part, definite guava texture. Lots of seed, but it's a big fruit. So definitely a lot of berry undertones, but nothing like a Lisa. So it's definitely different. If you're if you are into the very kind of chewy Antamoya texture, this probably is not the fruit for you. If you are into more like the kind of like the Cherimoya texture, you know, like a soft Cherimoya texture, not like a Dr. White, maybe like a honey heart kind of softness to it. This might be more to your liking. You kind of let this ripen a little bit more. You'll probably get to that. The flavor is pretty unique, so it's not like a cherimoya, not like an atamoya. There's some berry undertones, but it's like that, like berry mixed with guava or something like that. I mean, it's very easy to eat. I mean, I like this. I could kind of eat this wherever. But if you were growing this and expecting to kind of eat something that's like a atamoya, this is not for you. If you're looking for something a more kind of really odd or different flavor component in like a cherimoya, this is probably for you. Sweetness was a little bit better than the one that was dropped, but it's not like at the level of cherimoya or atamoya sweetness. And this is my first year with the fruit, so maybe we'll see how much it may improve in the second or third year. I like the flavor. I think I could eat a lot of this. Probably could eat more of this than some of the Atamoya and Cherilata, just because it's not as intensely sweet. Here's the core. Very, very large core, very large stem. And if you're looking for a texture that's probably more reminiscent of cream cheese and all that, either let it ripen a lot more or let it kind of drop. You know, for a drop fruit, it's quality still pretty good. It's still there. You know, there's a difference between this and the drop fruit, but I would say it's not much difference. Not much difference compared to like a drop Atamoya or something like that. At least on my tree, even the flesh kind of looks like a, you know, like a soft pink guava flesh, you know. So I hope this kind of helped you guys answer the questions you had about painters. Like my question about painters when I had it, I was kind of very curious if the texture was kind of more in line with a Cherilata, more in line with an Atamoya. You know, maybe it's you know, one of that was the texture aligned with. I'd say this is more aligned with a possibly towards the Cherilata, but even the Cherilata doesn't quite have this texture. Like the drier kind of texture, so it's probably a lot more closer to a reticulata. You know, this one not so much, just because I didn't let this one drop, and I let it ripen, but I didn't let it get really soft and ripe, like what would be over ripened, like an Atamoya or something like that. So in terms of flavor, I could see the flavor changing as my grafted branches get older. You know, it could be better or worse. But in terms of texture, I don't think it's going to be changing. I think this is probably the texture you are getting with it. Even the flesh around the seed coppers, usually on the Atamoya, is very chewy. And then on some Cherilata, it's a little chewy, some it's not. So this one is not, it's not really, you can't really taste much of it there. It's like it's there, it's kind of chewy, but it's kind of very kind of soft. It's not really there. See that piece I had on the top has a different texture. Once I kind of get into this right here, near the skin, tastes exactly like a kind of like a pink guava texture. Pink, like a pink soft guava texture. Well, there you have it. I mean, it's a good food. I like it. I'm gonna definitely keep a branch for myself to eat. But it's probably like if you're an Atamoya fan, it's probably not one I would say you would like. Just, you know, just kind of give you a heads up on that. If you're more like a Cherilata fan, or maybe a Reticulata fan, it's definitely something you like. The flavor is good. I like the flavor. Flavor is very unique, different than the Cherilata and Atamoyas I've had in the past. Could be more similar to a Reticulata, since I know how to Reticulata to compare this to. but I would imagine that's what it Cherilata tastes like. But like I said, I never had one to compare to. The flesh is pretty. It has kind of this pink blush to it. I think it could get more intense red from what I've seen. So maybe my tree needs a bit more time for it to develop that. The flesh, at least on mine, it's kind of been brown all winter and kind of specks of red. So maybe we'll see. Maybe that changes in the future. You know, I'm not really sure what affects coloring on the skin. I think light does affect it, but I think shade might help it more, but I'm not too sure. Probably be a lot more experimenting in the future with it to see what gives it the most colorful fruit, because I was really, that's one thing I was looking forward to. It's like a really bright red fruit, which I didn't get. Okay, so this is my review of Painter's Cherilata. You know, let me know what you guys think. Once if you guys ever tasted one, let me know what you guys think in comparisons to, you know, the Cherimoya, the Adamoya, the sugar apple, the Reticulata custard apple. All right. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. This was a pretty long review, and if you stuck through it, thanks for watching. All right. Thanks, everyone.